सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। स्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वत्। तपोभिक्षीपानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणाम् अपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। So we have been seeing in Atmabodha the series of shlokas which end with this line, Tad Brahmeti Avadharayet. Know that to be Brahman. So the pointers of Brahman have been explained through many shlokas. So last one which we saw was 60th one. So in this series of verses, the 61st one completes that series of thought. All these are pointers to contemplate, to meditate, that our nature is that pure consciousness, that Brahman, and we are not the finite Jiva. So now we take the 61st one today. Yad bhasa bhasyater kadi bhasyair yattu na bhasyate yena sarvamidam bhati tad brahmetyavadharayet. Yad bhasa bhasyate arkadi, by the light of which the sun provides light. Because of the presence of consciousness, the sun is able to provide light. Adi means all the other sources of light. So the moon, the stars, the lightning, the fire, in today's context, electricity. So whatever is able to give light or is able to illumine so that we are able to see the world, is able to do that because of the presence of consciousness. Bhasyair yattu na bhasyate. And he says that they cannot illumine the consciousness. Consciousness illumines the sun, the moon, the stars, the lightning, the fire, etc. But they cannot illumine consciousness. Yena sarvamidam bhati. It is because of the light of that consciousness all these are able to function. Tad brahmeti avadharayet. Know that Brahman to be your nature, is what the mantra says. So how to understand this? Generally we always think of the sun, the moon, the stars as some planets out there. Some star, not planet, a star. Moon is a satellite, the sun is a star. So we look at it only as nature. We look at it as some inert things. But what Vedanta says, all this is an appearance of that one divine pure consciousness. The essential quality of anything without which that thing will not remain, that is called the Dharma of that thing. Like water cannot be without its capability to quench thirst. Fire cannot be without light. Sun cannot be without that brilliance and that fire. So the essential nature of everything is, essential nature of a thing is called its Dharma. And what makes it perform that thing? What makes the sun give light? What makes the water have the quality of quenching the thirst? What makes the sugar sweet? So the essential nature of that, essential quality of that thing is because it exists and there is consciousness in that. Otherwise, that cannot do what it is doing. We only associate consciousness with life, response, emotions. So we think that something is sentient, so it gives such a response. Something which doesn't give such a response is an inert thing. Like for us, sun is inert. And the living beings are sentient. But you know, Vedanta says that consciousness pervades everything. Without that, nothing will be functioning. In the Guru Stotram, it comes very beautifully. Akhanda mandala karam vyaptam yena characharam. The sentient and the insentient, the moving and the non-moving, all are pervaded by one consciousness alone. Then why is it that something appears inert and something appears sentient? That is because in the inert, there is no subtle body. The mind, intellect, memory, ego, that subtle body is not there. So that inert appears as just inert. If you introduce subtle body, it will also start expressing consciousness as life and response. And when this subtle body empowered by consciousness leaves the gross body, this gross body which was sentient appears to be dull, dead. So consciousness is still there, but expression is not possible because this is not having the subtle body. So one consciousness alone pervades this whole universe. And when we say consciousness pervades the whole universe, that's why we, in our culture, we worship all these also as sentient forces. For us, nothing is inert. So we worship Surya, Surya Devata. We worship the river as Ganga Maya, Yamuna Maya. Or we worship the Varun Devata as the ocean, or Vayu Devata, the air. For us, nothing is inert. All of them are sentient forces, appearances of consciousness. We are not able to see them with our gross eyes, and we are not able to perceive life the way in which we are conditioned to think. Did I share the video with you where, water is life and water has life? Did I share that video with you? Okay, so let me show. It's a very nice video which speaks about how we think water is inert, but actually water is not. It's a very beautiful one. And this is one South African lady who is saying that. So it's not even like a Hindu person. It's a South African lady who says, and it matches so well with what we believe. So I'm just sharing the screen, you will see.
In the Lakota way of prayer, which has by now become almost a global saying, Mani Wachoni, they said. That has a lot of meaning, but a kind of shorthand is to say that water is life. Not only is water life, but water is also alive. So it has consciousness. The water is listening to us. And I had a phenomenon in my home in which water just started coming up out of the ground. And at one point it was coming up at 8 gallons a minute. So it was a lot of water. And I began to have this relationship with water like I never had before, because I was very concerned that it would flood my house, right? And so we kept talking, and we kept coming into a dialogue, and eventually I was able to say to her, look, if you need to take my house, it's okay. You can have it, because there's something that you're trying to do. It's gonna make me cry. And there's something that you're trying to say, and there's something that my community needs for you to arrive like this. And so I will be with you, and I will be a protector of you, and so I can speak on your behalf, And so this water and I were in this alliance. And I would tell it, you can't flow this way because the neighbors are complaining that you're making things too wet for them, and you can't flow this way because my storage shed is there, so I'd rather you don't go that way. You can't go this way because you're going to go into the street, and if you flow this way, then you're going to come into my house. So I'm not really sure what you can do, but I just ask for your help, because I have to go now, and I'm doing something good. So, anyway, so I leave and I come back, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and I found that water split in two directions and dropped down into the ground, into the earth. And that was her solution. And so this water began to talk to me about itself. And it said, it asked me to go and find this larger body of water close by where I live and to go pray in it. And so I stood in this long lake, and I was singing a prayer song with my drum over the water. And then that water started to give me some teaching, and it told me, it's good, daughter, it's good for you to pray into the water, because when you pray into the water, it actually intensifies your prayer. So literally, that water evaporates, and so that water can travel through the clouds. So your intention and your words travel through the clouds, and they can go anywhere they want to go, right? So your prayer and this intention that you're setting can travel through the clouds, and maybe they're going to go and send a little snow down over the Andes. And so I could feel it, that the Andes would say, my granddaughter, she's praying. She's praying. She's saying good things, and she's asking for good things, and she's aligning herself with life. And so even the rest of the life, all of the jungle, etc., would be sharing in this intention. And so it was saying, so literally in that way, the water travels, and this consciousness that you're emitting in your prayer into the water begins to travel throughout the consciousness of this life on the earth. So it said, it's really good that you're praying. And then it said, and not only does it travel over space, but it travels through time, because it's always been the same water. Maybe as this Mother Earth travels through the cosmos, we might be gaining some water. But nevertheless, the original water is still here, because this is what we call a closed system, right? So that water just stays here. So we can know that every single person that you see, all of our ancestors had a drink from this very water. So it really does unite us and tie us all together in such a beautiful and graceful way. So one, yes, it's a call for respect, but also it's a call for rejoicing in, like, look where we are. Look how magical this life is. And so we're just talking about one element here, water, and that's just one aspect of this element. So there's so much magic and mystery all around us if we have the eyes to see it, and if we have a way of listening for that teaching and that instruction. So for me, the water is extraordinary and sacred.
Such a nice video, no? She's saying not only water is life, but water is alive. And water responds. And interesting is she refers to water as her. Here we believe water is feminine, no? Ganga Maya we say, and Surya Devta we say. We don't do the reverse. So she also said it is her. And how nice that, stand in the water and pray. The intentions will travel. If you read our Shastra, what they say, suppose you do japa at your home, 100 times more japa, more punya is there if you do it near a water body. 1,000 times more punya is there if you do it near a river where there is a sangam happening. 1,000 times more of that is if you do in a punya kshetra, where it is like Badrinath, Kedarnath, Haridwar, any of these places on the banks of the river in a Tirtha Sthan, if I sit and do, 1,000 times more. And much more is if you do it during eclipse. So just now that Surya Grahan which went, the Ganapati Atharva Shirša Upanishad says that Surya Grahe Mahanadyam Pratima Sannidhau Va Japtva Siddha Mantro Bhavati. During solar eclipse, if one stands in the river or facing the deity on the banks of the river and chants the Ganapati Atharva Shirša, one will become Siddha Mantra. The mantra's intuitive powers will start revealing. So, what I mean to say here is that what we consider as inert is not inert. There is sentiency everywhere. And that's why here in this shloka also he says, like she said, water is just one element. It is across space and across time also. It is the same water which is getting recycled. So in the same way here it is that consciousness enlivens the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything has the capability because of presence of consciousness. They function because of consciousness. They need consciousness. Consciousness does not need any of this. And hence they say that consciousness is that which illumines all of them. It is because of that consciousness which we also call as Ishwara. It is because of that Ishwara that all of these function. In the Upanishads they say it is the fear of the Lord. Because if a system is functioning well, what it proves that there is a system creator. There is somebody who is enforcing that system, and that's how the system is functioning properly. So just the whole universe functions so meticulously, so beautifully, that itself is a proof that there is a sentient creator. So poetically in the Upanishad it is said, because of the fear of that Lord, the wind blows. Bhishasmar vata pavate. Bhisho deti surya. The sun rises because of the fear of that Lord. It's a poetic way to say that everything is functioning so meticulously because of the presence of consciousness. This is one way to understand that consciousness pervades the whole world. Other way to understand also is this: if I am not conscious, I don't experience the world at all. So without consciousness enlivening this, I can't experience this world. So sun, moon, stars, planets, lightning, nothing will have existence for me unless I don't wake up. My mind is not enlivened by consciousness. So now it is the consciousness that enlivens my body, mind, intellect, senses, because of which they are able to perceive the world. But they themselves cannot perceive this consciousness. And hence we say that these are symbolic also. Apart from externally the sun, moon, stars, etc. being able to do their function because of consciousness, there is an internal meaning or a spiritual symbolism of it. The sun is a presiding deity of our eyes. Without the presence of sun, our eyes can't see. If the light is not there, we can't see. Chakshusha Surya, it is said. The mind, the presiding deity of the mind is moon. So Surya, Chandra, then the stars twinkle. So they represent the objects outside. So there is fleeting pleasure in those objects. And their lifespan also is very small. So they decay very fast, they perish very soon. The capability in them to provide us some pleasure also comes from consciousness. So that's why you see many times when we do the arati, the mantra that we chant from the Upanishads is Om Natatra Suryo Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam. That the sun, the moon, the stars, they can't illumine you. Nema Vidyuto Bhanti. Even the lightning cannot illumine. Lightning symbolic of prana. So the senses, the prana, the mind, and the objects outside, nothing can illumine you. Natatra Suryo Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam Nema Vidyuto Bhanti Kutoyam Agni. How will this small little fire illumine you? Because in the sanctum it is dark, and there we do this arti, and only when arti is done can we see the Lord. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. It is by your light only all these are able to function, meaning the mind, the intellect, the senses, the objects, all these are able to function because of consciousness here. Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. It is because of your presence everything is illumined. So that we should remember that I am, that is the feeling of consciousness. I am, and that is same in all. And to know that I am, nothing else is required. No moon, no senses, body, mind, intellect, none of that is required, because I am is independent of all this. In deep sleep, all these are dormant, but I still experience I am. In samadhi, all these are dormant, I still experience I am. So I am comes first, then the world is experienced. But most of the time we forget that. We think that world is there independent of I. And I am born in this world, I am living in this world, and one day I will go from this world. That is because we think of ourselves as the body. But if we think of ourselves as consciousness, tad brahmeti avadharayet, then the world is there in me, the world stays in me, the world dissolves in me. I am independent of the world. In fact, the world needs me for its existence. I don't need the world for the existence. As consciousness, that is our true nature. And how strange it is. Today we live exactly opposite. We think without this person in the world, without that power in the world, without this pleasure in the world, we are not happy. So we have become dependent on the world today. Whereas the fact is, as consciousness, world depends on us. Without this true I, there is no world, there is no Srishti. In fact, that is the definition of God. In the Upanishad it is said, what is Brahman? That in which the whole universe rises, stays and dissolves, that is called Brahman. That is a pure consciousness. So we have to shift our identity from this small I to the big I, and that big I is infinite. Everything is there in that big I, it stays, it disappears. Imagine what is infinity and what is this small little I. There is no comparison at all. So more and more one should meditate that my nature is that pure consciousness. All our dependencies on the world will end. And when dependencies end, what happens? Sorrows end. Sorrow comes only because of dependency. If there is no dependency, there is no sorrow. Higher dependency, higher sorrow. So in life, how much have I become independent? Not as an ego alone, but as consciousness, to know that everything else is appearance of this one consciousness. So in one's meditation, one has to contemplate in this way that I am not this body, mind, intellect. I am that pure consciousness which enlivens this body, mind, intellect, and which enlivens this whole world. Without this consciousness, the world will not function. Without the consciousness, the BMI will not function. So this concludes the series of verses which speak about how consciousness is our true self. Tad brahmeti avadharayet. Know that to be Brahman, and that Brahman is our true nature. Now a few more analogies. In 62nd one he says, Swayamantar bahir vyapya bhasayannakhilam jagat brahma prakashate vanhihi prataptaya sapindavat. So when we say consciousness enlivens, how does it enliven? That is explained in this shloka. Swayam antar bahir vyapya. It pervades inside and outside. Like how when we have a pot There is space inside the pot also, there is space outside the pot also. Space pervades everything. Inside, outside, everything is space. Same way, consciousness pervades within the BMI, outside the BMI, everything. Bhasayan Akhilam Jagat, and that's how it illumines the whole universe. Brahma Prakashate Vanhihi. And this consciousness shines on its own. It does not need anything else to shine. That was said earlier. The example given here is the fire, how this fire heats up this iron ball. Pratapta ayasa pindavat. This iron ball and fire. This is a very beautiful analogy. We have seen this earlier also, it came in Atmabodha. So this iron ball is dark. It is round. It is heavy. This fire is bright. It has no heaviness, and it is very warm. It gives heat. So heat, light, formlessness, that is fire. Dark, heavy, cold, and round is the iron. Now this iron, when it is heated up, so this iron ball, if it is put in fire, what will happen? That iron ball will as though get hot. So iron ball which was dark now becomes bright. Fire which was formless as though becomes round. So this is called mutual superimposition. Because they are associated with each other, they for some time assume the qualities of each other. They don't become like that completely. They don't transform. They assume the qualities. If you separate them, they will come back to their nature. Same way, this whole universe by itself is inert. It is perishable. It is Prakriti. It is matter. When purusha consciousness enlivens it, then there is life. Like each of us is like that. BMI by itself is Jada Vastu. It is inert. But consciousness enlivens this. Then it functions. Or the other example is the electricity and the bulb. By itself, none of them can give light, neither electricity nor bulb. But if both these are brought together, then there is light. So in the same way, in this world, matter and spirit have to come together. Then life we see around. So how does consciousness enliven the world? The explanation is this shloka. Until consciousness doesn't enliven the world, there will be no capability in that inert matter to function, including the sun, moon, stars. And that's why this shloka is a very important aspect. That what do we understand as creation? What do we look at creation as? See, this is the difference between science and Vedanta is this. Science looks at creation as matter, inert matter. And science thinks that by a certain combination of this inert matter in a specific condition, consciousness or life will be created. Vedanta says, no, it is not like that. This matter also is appearance of consciousness only. And only when matter is enlivened by consciousness, this creation is possible, otherwise it is impossible. And that is what is personified in our culture as Prakriti and Purusha. So we worship both Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti we worship as Mother, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati. Navratra we celebrate. Purusha we worship through either formless Brahman or even through Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So this both have to come together. Otherwise creation won't happen. Prakriti by itself cannot create. Purusha by itself will not create. Prakriti, Purusha coming together, only creation is possible. And people don't understand this, so they unnecessarily say there is so much of gender bias in our culture. Where is gender bias? Prakriti and Purusha both are equally required, then only creation is possible. Even science says that or not. How is a child born? Only when chromosomes of both father and mother come together, then only child is born. Otherwise it's impossible. So gender equality has been there in our culture right from beginning. There is no question of not being there. Think about the various concepts of creation in different cultures. And then think about what is Vedantic understanding of creation. It will be most amazing. We don't think that creation came from one small little matter. One dot. That is only an appearance of the consciousness, which today metaphysics and quantum physics are arriving at. There is one consciousness which alone appears as the world, so they have come to that appearance aspect also. So now this Prakriti and Purusha together is Shiva and Shakti, Lakshmi and Vishnu. So we say Lakshmi Narayan, or we say Sita Ram or Radhe Krishna, or Brahmaji and Saraswati. And the same is personified as Ardhanarishwara also. Half Shiva and half Shakti is Ardhanarishwara. Without these two coming together, creation won't happen. So the Gita 13th chapter also Bhagavan explains about this, Prakriti and Purusha, and how both are important and how both are worshipped in our culture. Purusha Prakriti sthohi bhungte Prakriti jan gunan. The enlivener is Purusha and Prakriti is the three gunas. And through these three gunas, the Purusha gets an identity of the Jiva and experiences the whole world. And that Purusha, when one withdraws the identification with the Prakriti, will realize I am pure consciousness, which is infinite. So the infinite, identifying with its own power of creation, appears as a finite. Like the waker lying on the bed, using the power to dream, becomes a dreamer, and then creates the whole dream world. In that same way, consciousness identified with its own power of Maya becomes Ishwara, the creator of the whole universe. And when that creator of the whole universe, how does he create? From himself? Like the spider creates the web from itself, in the same way this whole universe is an appearance of consciousness. Which means all of us are appearances of that one truth. That's why in Hindi there's a very nice couplet which says, Tujme Ram, Mujhme Ram, Sabme Ram samaya hai. कर लो सबसे प्यार जगत में कोई नहीं पराया है. एक ही माँ के हम सब बच्चे, एक ही पिता हमारा है. ना जाने किस मूर्ख ने फिर लड़ना हमें सिखाया है. How much we go on fighting in the name of caste, creed, racism and gender and money and power and what not. Forgetting essentially we are all appearances of one pure consciousness. So that's why this shloka is beautiful, where it says that both are responsible for creation and hence worship both. Now if I worship Prakriti, I will not exploit the world. And if I worship Purusha, I will realize I am infinite. And the same infinity is there all around. There is one infinite only. So I will live more in kindness, compassion, love, service. If I don't worship Prakriti, and I think of Prakriti as some inert matter, then I exploit the world, misuse it, abuse it, and today where we have landed. And if I don't know that there is a Purusha, then Prakriti is perishable. So I think I am also perishable. So there will be insecurity, fear, sorrow, stress, all that. But if I worship both, that's the most beautiful vision. Worshipping Prakriti, realize the Purusha. And all this is personified very beautifully in our religion. People think it is all primitive. It is not primitive at all. It is most deep, Vedantic, mystical also. Who introduces a child to the father? It will always be the mother who introduces the child to the father. If this is your father. Same way, we worship Prakriti saying, "Oh mother, please help me to reduce my Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna. Please help me to increase Sattva so that I can realize consciousness in my heart." Prakriti only leads us to Purusha. Because we are right now identified with Prakriti too much. So we think Purusha does not exist. Please remember, when we say Purusha, it does not mean man, it means consciousness. Purusha means consciousness in Vedanta. Prakriti means the power of consciousness to create. So right now identified with this Prakriti, we worship the Prakriti that please help us to increase our Sattva Guna. Then we can contemplate and realize our nature as pure consciousness. Then this separation can be done. This iron ball and the fire have got mixed. That can be separated. That is called Vivek, and Vivek can be done in Sattva Guna. So as much we pray to Prakriti that Sattva Guna, please help me to increase, so that even we, whatever we consume from Prakriti also we should take as Sattvic only. So Sattvic food, proper water, Sattvic company, Sattvic work, all those things. If you remember earlier, we have done 10 aspects which should become Sattvic, then life becomes Sattvic. So we seek that grace of the Lord and Mother Prakriti. So that's why in the temples you will have both Radha and Krishna, Sita and Ram. So why we worship both? Because both have to be worshipped. They are not two actually, they are one only. The power does not exist without the locus. Prakriti does not exist without Purusha. The manifestation of that Purusha is this Prakriti. So that's how this Vedantic principle gets applied so beautifully in our culture. So these festivals are not meant just for celebration, they are meant to reinforce the Vedantic principle. That what is my relationship with Prakriti? Then every minute we live in complete awareness that there is only one truth appearing everywhere. So now, having said that, these few verses now, the next few verses are like a summary of what we have learned, and it will conclude. 63rd one says, Jagad vilakshanam brahma brahmano nyanna kinchana brahmanyad bhati chen mithya yatha marumarichika. So Jagad vilakshanam brahma. This world is other than Brahman. Jagad vilakshanam brahma. But it is also a fact that apart from Brahman, nothing else exists. Brahmano anyanna kinchana. If I am seeing something else apart from Brahman, Brahma anyad bhati chen mithya. If I see something else apart from Brahman, then that is illusion. How? Yatha marumarichika, like the mirage in the desert. So just like the mirage is different from the sand in one sense, because there is only sand actually. But if at all I am seeing the mirage, the water there, that is only because of illusion. So as long as I am living in the world and I think the world is real, then the first line applies. The Vedantic master says, no, world is not real. Brahman is real, world is different from it. World is perishable, Brahman is non-perishable, imperishable. World is finite, Brahman is infinite. So to help us to come away from the illusion, this Viveka is done. That Brahman is separate, world is separate. But when one starts understanding deeper, then one says actually they are not two. The relationship between them is of the superimposition and the substratum. The superimposition is the world, Brahman is the substratum. Like the sand is the is the substratum. Mirage water is the superimposition. So if at all I am seeing mirage water, that is an illusion 100%, because there is nothing there, there is no water there. In the same way here, yatha maru marichika. So if I see something other than Brahman, then that's an illusion only. It can't be real. The great masters, when they experience this in the state of samadhi, that there is one Brahman alone, when they come out of that state, they see the whole world also as one Brahman only. Today we are seeing it as an intellectual knowledge. But in our feeling, in our perception, we still see it only as, different from Brahman, different from the real I. But the saints, they may see functionally people differently, but in their vision, they know all this is appearance of Brahman. That is a direct experience. So Namdev was once sitting outside the temple. And some Annadan was happening. So he sat and they gave some, roti and some vegetables. So Namdev they gave roti and the vegetables are in that, container, that pattal container. So he had kept it down there. And roti was in the hand. So he was trying to take a bite of the roti with the vegetable and eat. Suddenly one dog came and snatched away the roti and ran. So Namdev he took the vegetable in his hand and he's running behind the dog saying, "Oh Vishnu, where are you going without a vegetable? Take the vegetable also." So the other person was standing there. He's saying, "Have you gone mad? Why are you running behind the dog?" So Namdev said, he took the roti and went. How will he eat the roti? Let him have the vegetable also. So this man said, "Arey, that is a dog. Let it eat what it wants. You can at least eat the vegetable with you. Why are you running? Just leave it." And Namdev said such a beautiful thing. He said, Vishnu is running with Vishnu, behind Vishnu to feed Vishnu. What is your problem, Vishnu? His vision is that everything is Vishnu only. The dog is also Vishnu, the roti is also Vishnu, the vegetable is also Vishnu, he is also Vishnu, and that man who is shouting at him also is Vishnu. He doesn't have any division in his mind at all. Though functionally he still knows there is a dog and he went with the roti. So it is not that functionally they will not see what is happening out there. And it is not that if some, if they have to fight something, they will not fight. It is not like that. They will fight also. Like Krishna is telling Arjun, you have to destroy the Pandavas, the Kauravas. At the same time, Bhagavan is saying, I alone pervade the whole thing. So it appears very mysterious, but it is not. The same one pure consciousness appears everywhere, and it is like waves of, many waves rising in the ocean and falling. They rise and they fall. Just because it's all water, will the waves stop? No. Waves will continue to rise, stay and fall. The ocean enjoys the play of the waves rising and falling. But the vision is all water, it's all me alone. So that's the master's realization also, that whatever is Brahmano Anyanna Kinchana, there is nothing else except Brahman. This is the final state of realization. So that is asserted again in the 64th one also. Drishyate shruyate yadyat brahmanonyanna tad bhavet tatvajnanacha tad brahma tacchidanandam advayam. So he says here, drishyate shruyate yadyat. Whatever is seen, whatever is heard, meaning whatever is perceived through the five senses, Brahmano anyanna tad bhavet. It is not different from Brahman. Tattvajnanacha tad Brahma. Gaining this knowledge of the self, of that absolute Brahman, Satchidanandam Advayam. One will have this vision when one gets the Tattvajnana, that there is only one Brahman alone which pervades everything, and that is non-dual, Advaya, Satchidananda, of the nature of existence, consciousness and bliss. Satchidanandam Advayam. So Tattvajnana is very, very important. Every other thing is meant to give us Tattvajnana, including all our duties in the world. We may not know directly the relation, but that's a fact. In the Tulsi Ramayana also, Tulsidaji said beautifully, Dharmate virati. One who follows Dharma, that person will have Vairagya. That person's likes and dislikes will become less. And that person who purifies oneself through the performance of duties dedicated to God, that person becomes ready for Tattvajnana. So my worldly life also is a preparation to realize Tattvajnana only. One should not think, oh my God, I am stuck in samsara. Now when will this realization of this oneness of Brahman happen? You see, worldly life is meant to reduce raga and dvesha and eliminate them. So one very nice way to neutralize raga and dvesha is what, if you want to practice, you can practice till the next class. Whatever you dislike, think about it as Brahman. And whatever you like, think about it as an illusion. Today it is what I dislike, I run away from it. And whatever I like, I run towards it. So raga and dvesh increases. Now how to reduce that raga and dvesh? Whatever I dislike, think of it as Brahman, meaning remove the sense of duality there. Connect with it. Whether it is food, suppose you don't like Bengan. Now think that this Bengan is actually Brahman in another form. Brahman has come in front of me to nourish me. Let me eat this Bengan. Because the fact is, it is Brahman. There is no doubt. It is not information. It is reality. Annam Brahma. Upanishad say, Annam Brahme Tivya Jana. Taittiriya Upanishad says that no food to be God. God alone is sitting in front of us as food. So we eat like that. Suppose I don't like something. Exercise I don't like. Understand that the power to do exercise is Brahman. This body which is becoming fit is also Brahman. So do the exercise. So whatever I dislike, consider it to be Brahman, connect with it, and wherever possible, internalize it. And whatever I like, think of it as an illusion, so don't engage in it. Suppose you like sweet. If Rasgulla comes, say this is an illusion, this is not reality, leave it. Don't apply false logic there. Don't say, Swamiji, I will eat Rasgulla and then think that the enjoyment is an illusion. People may misuse Vedanta also. Then that like the raga for Rasgulla will increase. Whatever is an illusion, like the earlier example, if I know that there is no water there, it's only, mirage, it appears as mirage, there's only sand, then I won't run towards it. So look at Rasgulla and say, this is an illusion. There is no reality in it. And if I eat this, his body will have sugar spike, unnecessary. Brahman is equanimous. No spikes in Brahman. So this Rasgulla is illusory. Don't eat it, Rasgulla right now. So now divert the mind to Brahman. This Rasgulla asakti will go away. Or you tell your mind, okay, this is an illusion. Let me remember what is the reality. What is making the Rasgulla sweet is that Brahman. So I will do japa of Brahman 27 times. So if you really do japa of Brahman 27 times, the mind will go away from Rasgulla. And all chances are Rasgulla will disappear because somebody else will eat it. I'm just giving some methods how to reduce the raga and dvesha, because that is practically required to experience the Tattva Jnana. When we listen to Tattva Jnana, realization should happen instantly. Because Tattva Jnanacha Tat Brahma. But why realization is not happening instantly? Because there is some raga and dvesha very strong in the mind. So no matter how much we are told Tattvamasi, it doesn't get inside the head. Because mind is preoccupied with raga and dvesha. Temporarily it leaves raga and dvesha and comes to satsang, and so it helps. At least for that time raga and dvesha is not there, so mind is uplifted. Now imagine if that we continue through the day. How nice. Mind will get purified. No raga, no dvesh. No attachment, no aversion. With such a mind, when I listen to the truth, realization will happen then and there, instantly, immediately. So that's the way to realize. Tattva Jnanacha Tad Brahma. So this whole universe is appearance of that one truth. The more and more that bhavana one should have. Sarvagam Satchidatmanam Jnana Chakshur Nirikshate Ajnana Chakshur Neksheta Bhasvantam Bhanu Mandhavat. Sarvagam Satchidatmanam. All this is pervaded by one pure consciousness. Who will see this? Jnana Chakshur Nirikshate. One whose third eye, the intuitive eye of wisdom, has awakened. That person will see. Ajnana Chakshur na iksheta. The ignorant one can't see. Though it is Brahman alone everywhere, one can't see. Why? Because ignorance is covering. Bhasvantam bhanum andhavat. Like the sun is shining brightly. But if somebody is blind, they can't see that. Or if somebody has, covered their eyes, or their eyes are closed, then they can't see. The sun is shining bright. In the same way, Brahman alone is in this whole universe. But we are, our eye is covered by this ignorance. We are blinded by ignorance. That's why the Guru Stotram says, Ajnana Timirandhasya. By the darkness of ignorance, I am blinded. Jnananjana Shalakaya. With the stick of knowledge, one who has applied this knowledge like the kajal and who has opened my eyes. Chakshu Unmilitam Yena. To that Guru, my salutation. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So every time you apply kajal, remember this, that kajal is supposed to be Tattva Jnana. Nowadays people, it become very common. Earlier days, so we used to apply with, on a vessel you burn a little bit and then that kajal is applied. Nowadays they have the pen also, this kajal. So we apply kajal. And people apply it because it beautifies the eye and gives a good appearance. But we should remember that kajal is actually supposed to be Jnana Anjana. is the vision of oneness, is the vision of knowledge. Every time one applies kajal, one should think about it. Did I gain the vision of oneness or not? Because that really beautifies our life. The external kajal can beautify the eyes. Nothing wrong in applying that. But the real vision is vision of oneness. That vision of oneness, did I gain or not? Every single day I can attempt to live more out of that vision of oneness and love. Reduce my raga and dvesha. Increase my understanding of Brahma Vidya. Then I am evolving. And what will be the realization? One finally becomes one with the Supreme. So for today we will stop here. Gamaya, Tamasoma, Jete Gamaya, Vishyorma, Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.